Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Faerie Conclave. This is episode number 68. I'm your host, Alec. My pronouns are he, him. And joining me on the line, it's an extra special guest. It's Livi. How are you doing today, Livi?
Hey, I'm doing so good. It's so nice to be back here on my favorite podcast that I co-host fairly regularly. Although,
Yep.
I was thinking about it, and I guess the last episode we did together was maybe Torgar. It's maybe been a minute, but I'm so excited to be here today and talk about like Myr again,
Yes.
Myr Part 2. Oh, and by the way, Livy, he, they, those are my pronouns. So happy to be here.
I added the extra special guest at the beginning just because it had been a couple episodes since we last had you on, but not too many. So
It was time.
yeah, it was
I was
definitely
missing
time.
it.
Yeah. And so today we're going to be talking about Myr with Livi, which is a specialty of theirs. Very excited about this because it's been a long time since we've done an appreciation episode. We've actually only done one. We did a Goblins appreciation episode sometime last year with Cameron, and it was a ton of fun. We just talked about silly goblin questions and some of our favorite goblins and arts and things like that. And one of the things I've been wanting to do since then was kind of expand that to other creature types that people I know are experts in. And so, of course, we had to have Livi on to talk about Myr. And
Yay!
and I'm really excited. And so we're going to get into it. But before we do, let's do our community spotlight for the episode, which for this episode is going to be Veggie Wagon. And Livy, would you like to give a little bit of background on this person?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, Veggie Wagon, I just see on Twitter all the time, and recently he started doing something I really, really enjoyed. He started dubbing over episodes of Yu-Gi-Oh! With just like basically like Magic the Gathering skits. So, like the first one I saw was, Yugi gets his like package from Pegasus. He opens it up and Grandpa starts like ranting about secret layers. It was quite funny, and Veggie Wagon does like all of the voice acting for it himself, and it's really well done. It's really fun, and in my opinion, is just like criminally underrated. So, would recommend checking them out on Twitter and YouTube. Very fun stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that concept so much. That's so funny.
Yeah, it's really good. I also know, like, it's funny. I've seen him talking about this idea for like probably at least 6 months, and to like see it finally come out and be so enjoyable was just like a treat.
I love it.
Oh, that's great.
And yeah, so we'll have links to Veggie Wagon's information, content, YouTube. I think he streams as well. Is that right?
Yeah, as I understand it, he streams, and I think he also does TikToks. He has a lot of just like kind
Sweet.
of parody content and skits and stuff like that. So, would highly recommend.
Cool. Yeah, so happy to shout out another content creator in the community, and we'll have links in the episode description below to where you can find that. And okay, I think it's time. So basically, I've got a bunch of questions for you, Livy, about Myr specifically, and I'm really excited to get into it because I have a ton of experience over the years of playing against your very like detailed, in-depth Myr commander decks. So many different commanders, so many different combos,
so many different iterations. Yeah, it has been a long journey, and like even just this week, getting ready for this episode and kind of tinkering with my Myr decks, I like discovered new things that I was really excited about for Myr as a creature type. So very excited.
yeah. I think goblins are. It's one of the kind of most prominent and well-known creature types out there as far as more like creature type based strategies go. Like lots of goblins care about having lots of goblins.
For sure.
But Myr is kind of a totally different strategy, totally different creature type. That is a lot. There are a lot less of them, but I'm always surprised at how impressive their effects are. And we were just talking kind of before we started recording that you had found some new synergies with a Myr card from Mirrodin Besieged that very strange stuff that you can do that's really cool. So okay, so I think the first question I've got for you, which We might have talked about. I think we interviewed a Myr commander deck
Yeah,
of yours.
Raf Capuchin.
That's
That
right.
was, I think, that was like your like 10th episode or something, and it was the
Yeah.
first episode, I believe, that I was on the podcast way back when.
Yeah.
And
Good times.
I I believe that might still be your longest episode. So
I
like,
think
just fair
so.
warning, fair warning. Whenever you get me talking about Myr, I have a lot to say.
I love it.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about Raf Capuchin, but it's kind of funny because I feel like that's like 40 iterations of Myr commander decks ago since that
Yeah.
deck was
Yeah.
around. So yeah,
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
excited to get into that.
Yeah, I no longer even have that deck together, and I like miss it sometimes. But like my current go-to Myr deck, I think is a lot more effective and fun. So that's pretty neat.
Gotcha. Yeah,
Yeah,
also makes me think I really like doing the commander deck interviews because it's like a really cool snapshot of a deck at some time and period.
sure. Yeah,
I feel like it's kind of cool. Like if you went back to listen to it, you're like, oh yeah, that's everything I was thinking when I built this deck that has
right.
since maybe been
Absolutely.
taken apart. Yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, and how your like philosophy towards the game changes as well over time. Like I feel like just thinking back to then, it was like I think that episode was a couple years ago at this point, maybe. Felt
Yeah,
felt like it was 2020.
yeah,
I feel like my thoughts and yeah, just my thoughts about the format have changed so much since then, and like what I'm trying to achieve in a game of Commander or what I'm trying to get out of it have changed a lot as well. So it's interesting how that affects the deck building and
yeah,
even the deck piloting, really.
yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll have to go back and yeah, and listen to some of those episodes because yeah, it's definitely over 2 years ago. That's wild.
Yeah, that's wild. So cool.
All right, so let's get into it. My first question for you is, where did you gain your profound love of Myr in the first place?
All right, so the year is 2004. I was a little guy, and I loved the Pokemon TCG. And I was just like, I can't even, I think it was like at some store that has long since been out of business, just like kind of a department store. And I saw these structure decks, and immediately I just saw, Fifth Dawn, and on the front of the box was this awesome artifact creature, Sun Crusher, that like I'm sure two people have ever heard about. It's a great card. It's really, really
Sun
janky.
Crusher.
Yeah, but anyway, and I remember I was just like I was so into this, and I think I had like my birthday coming up soon, so I like begged my mom basically like, oh, I really want this, and so I got like the one deck of Magic cards, and I just like did not know how to play the game at all, and I don't know, I just like could not figure out how to play it, but I would just go through this deck over and over and over, looking through the art. And of course, Fifth Dawn is on the plane of Mirrodin, so the deck was just like full of Myr. And like every time I would get to these Myr cards, I would just kind of pause and be like, "Oh, these things are so cool looking." I just love the visual design of them so much that I just like kept returning to these cards. I like even made up rules to the game before I like knew the official rules because I
Yeah.
just wanted to use these cards with like such amazing art on them before I knew how to. But yeah, so Myr were a huge part of how I just was so drawn to Magic, I guess. Yeah.
I love it. That's kind of back in the day when you would like tap for a blue and you thought that meant you would go and search an island out of your
Yeah,
library.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, based on that like minimal rule book that came with those. It was
Absolutely. Yeah.
weird games back then.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like maybe that structure deck I had didn't even come with like rules very much. It might have come with like an explanation of what Sunburst was. But yeah, it was a couple of years before I met someone that was able to like actually teach me the game, which was just an amazing experience when it happened.
Yeah, you're like, oh, okay, I was
Yeah,
not doing this correctly up until now.
exactly. Yep.
I love it, and I'm excited to get your thoughts on. You mentioned the art on the Myr was a really big part of what drew you to them in the first place.
Yeah, yeah.
And I know I've heard from you that there are some Myr arts that you don't particularly enjoy as much as others.
Sure,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and it kind of reminds me of Slivers, how they kind of got like a redesign
Exactly.
at some point when they kind of
Hmm.
reintroduced them, and there were a lot of like nostalgia like nostalgic people who are unhappy about their new redesign and kind of how slivers looked. So
Yeah, that's exactly the comparison I draw as well, where it's like you have this really distinctive kind of like design for a creature that is just like really ingrained in your mind, and then when they like totally change it, you're like, what are you doing?
yeah,
I love how that looked. So yeah, like it was interesting because we went back to Scars of Mirrodin. They didn't change like the design of all the Myr, just some of them, like even just like a handful of them really. So I'm thinking of like the Manamere and like particularly Palladium Myr is a really popular card, and you can
yeah,
kind of envision how different that looks than like all the Myr on say Myr Battlesphere. So I'm a big fan of the classic Myr look,
gotcha.
and I even really enjoy like the Phyrexian completed Myr that tend to be more like kind of classic design informed. I think that's really cool, but not as huge a fan of the the other ones in Scars. But yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's interesting. I know kind of one other thing that's pretty common among people who look at Myr art is not knowing which part of it is the eyeball.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just love
yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's so cool because like from artist to artist, they
Yeah.
have like gosh, I think like Kev Walker did a lot of the original Myr art designs. I'm not sure if he's the one that like really came up with the design, but like you have all this art made for the Myr, and then when you pass it along to other artists, like they have they're like big circles on the kind of base of their head, and then these tiny circles a little like farther forward. And from artist to artist, you can really tell they kind of emphasize those circles
Yeah.
differently and see them as like eyes differently. So I think that is a really cute little quirk, and it's
Yeah.
also like just even with like the pronunciation of Myr, like people. I've heard like at least three different pronunciations of the word
Yep.
Myr, like Myr, Meyer, Myr. Um, Mark Rosewater has said it is officially Myr, but that appeal of like comparing it to like the Myrmidon, with the same spelling, MYR,
Mm,
makes a lot of sense. So can definitely get why people pronounce it Myr. But yeah, they're cute little kind of quirky guys that have all this like, what exactly are they?
yeah.
What's going on here?
I love
Yeah.
it. It's kind of it's something you probably wouldn't see anymore since the art direction nowadays is so much more like concise and tight, and all the art kind of is kind of checked against each other. So I do love
Mhm.
how, yeah, like you said, Myr from different artists have seemingly kind of like different structure to what they're kind of doing and what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, we've only gotten like uh three new Myr since like, 2013, and those
Mm,
all in Modern Horizons 2, and the Parcel Myr and the Myr Scrappling definitely had a very like cohesive like, oh, that looks like a classic Myr look to them. The Knighted Myr though was like totally different. I don't know what was going on there. They made it like much more bird-like, and that's kind of cool to see. But so
oh,
I hope that when we do get to see more Myr, we'll still see some kind of like interesting different takes on the Myr, but with a lot of I guess just like homage to the classic design. I'm like
yeah.
fully expecting to see a lot of Phyrexianized Myr very soon.
Yes.
Very
Yeah.
excited for that.
Yes, yeah, and that's kind of what prompted me to finally get this episode up and running. Is I know we have two sets later this year coming out on Dominaria, which
Yeah.
it's gonna be, it's gonna be big chances for getting more Myr cards and Myr related cards.
Right. Yeah, Phyrexianized Myr all over the place is
Ooh,
definitely a solid bet. I'm guessing, but
yeah, yeah, and I feel like since they did have those three new Myr in Modern Horizons 2, they usually have reintroduced creature types in sets like that in preparation for maybe more entries later. I'm hoping that's
please,
kind of
please, please.
foreshadowing. Yeah.
Me too. Please. Yeah.
So yeah, stay tuned. Let's get Myr on our minds so we can manifest that. when
Yeah, I might just start tweeting at like Gavin Verhey every day. Just the word Myr. Like, remember these
please.
guys?
Yeah. It works, I bet.
uh, yeah.
Sweet.
Uh,
Okay, so speaking of getting into the cards more specifically,
mhm.
which Myr card is your favorite?
Yeah, so I love so many Myr cards, but I guess just like specifically mechanically speaking, like the first card that comes to my mind when I'm thinking like my win con for Myr, like my whole game plan is probably Myr Incubator, which is this adorable box just full of Myr. And as I understand it, like when it first debuted way back when, it did see like a fair amount of constructed play. Like I know there are gold bordered Myr Incubator cards, which means that that was like in one of those like like Pro Tour decks that they would
Yeah.
make. So that's kind of cool. I think it's been a little bit forgotten to time. But I think it is like a fairly dangerous card because you're like, the effect of it is it's a 6 mana card, and then the activated ability is 6. You tap it, sack it, and you can exile any number of artifacts from your deck to create that many 1/1 Myr. So that can like backfire horrendously, and it has.
Yep.
It has for me many times. Like I know, I think the most memorable times it's backfired have both been against you, Lick, actually.
Oh,
But
really?
it's like, yeah, when you've Rakdos charmed me immediately when I crack it, and I'm like,
Uh,
oh, guess I'll die. And then the other time was like, you just had like a board wipe instantly, and I was like, all right, I have very few cards left in my library.
yep.
But that was like a really fun game to make it work because I like when I activate the incubator, I always try and leave a couple artifacts that are going to help me like still win the game potentially if my board does get wiped. And so like trying to achieve that game plan with like a 40 card deck is always really fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that.
Um,
Uh, this is kind of the I would call this the perfect example of a card that can create a cool story in a game of Commander,
mhm, mhm.
which if you know us, is something we love to have.
Oh yeah.
And
Mhm,
yeah, and it's just a funny card. It's like a really like all in
mhm,
type of
mhm.
card. Also cool that
It,
it's certainly wasn't designed with commander decks in mind. So the
it's very
fact
true.
that
That's very
you
true.
can easily exile 50 cards from your library
Yeah.
and get 50 1/1 mirror tokens is pretty
Yeah,
intense.
and you can crack it at instant speed. So like they
Mm,
kind of have pseudo haste, and like that means that the window your opponents have for like using a board wipe is drastically reduced because you
yeah.
just crack it on your opponent's end step, and you have your huge wide board of 1/1s to swing in. It's like I don't find that is usually going to win me the game by itself, in a multiplayer game. But like if I have my coat of arms out or like shared animosity or something,
Mm,
absolutely, we're good to
yep.
go.
Yep.
Or a couple other mirror cards that pay off that. Battlesphere is always fun with a incubator.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
Tap
Yep. Yep.
50 mirror, deal 50 damage directly
Yeah.
before
Yeah.
combat.
Yep. Exactly.
I
Yeah.
love it.
Pretty fun.
Okay, yeah,
Uh,
that's a great choice.
yeah, but I mean, it is cheating a little bit because it's not like a mirror creature.
Mm,
So this, I would say that like really the glue of the mirror creature type is these artifacts that do things with mirror rather than like the actual creatures. There's like a
gotcha.
handful of mirror creatures that are pretty strong. But I really find that like things like Incubator and Mirror Turbine and like to a lesser degree like Mirror Matrix and stuff like that really help you kind of feel like you're playing a mirror deck. But
Gotcha.
yeah, I would if I had to say I had like which mere creature is my favorite mechanically. Like it's hard to beat Battlesphere. Battlesphere is just so fun. You throw it down, it immediately gives you 4 mirror, and then when it attacks, you tap any number of mirror, deal that much damage to a player, and it gets that much buff to its power. So it's just a fun, like, solid card.
Yeah.
I love that card.
Yeah, that's a card I've played a lot, and I've seen a lot of other people play as well because it's such a good enters the battlefield ability that
Hmm.
if you have ways to use that or copy it or blink it or things like
For
that,
sure.
it's
Yeah,
really good.
it's a really neat card because it synergizes so well with so many different strategies.
Yeah,
Like, aristocrats, or you already mentioned flicker, cloning,
totally.
um, yeah, or just like, artifact synergies that want to have a ton of artifacts coming into play, that kind of stuff. That's a cool card.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is probably the card that most people think of when you say mirror.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah.
one of the more popular ones. I would say the other like most popular ones are probably Palladium Mirror because it's just like a
Yeah.
really cheap, really good, just like mana dork. Just a 3-drop that taps for 2. It's a really solid card. It's usually just like 25 cents, 50 cents, so a great budget include. You see it a lot. And stuff like Plague Myr. Plague Myr is really neat because it's like mana dork with Infect, so it goes into a lot of decks that can kind of play around with Infect in sneaky ways, just suddenly buff it a ton or whatever. It's kind of cool.
Gotcha.
But yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, it's really nice that these creatures have cards that are like still actually really powerful and are synergistic and work really well to this day. At some point in the future, I'll have someone interview me on ooze appreciation.
Oh yeah.
Which one of my favorite creature types, but definitely much harder to pull together some kind of synergy with those creatures and
sure.
less powerful cards overall. But yeah,
sure.
So it's cool.
That's fair.
The follow-up question to that is kind of getting into a little more of the strategy of Myr and kind of how they can achieve victory. Besides Myr Incubator, so which card that is Myr related do you think is the most powerful?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would think that I've thought a lot about this and have a lot of experience playing with like every single Myr creature. Like at some point or another, I have tried to play with every single Myr creature, if not in Commander, in other formats. And there's a lot of stinkers. I would say, there's like 38 Myr creatures, I believe.
Okay.
And of those, I would say that there's like maybe, 10 or so that are like fairly playable. Nothing like super crazy, but like fairly playable. But I would say, actually, just this week, I was looking at my Myr Welder card, because our friend Luke recently built a Merseal the Pretender deck, which is like this cool thing that exiles, cards and copies their activated abilities, and you can like assemble all these combos in really interesting ways with that commander. And I was looking at Myr Galvanizer, and Myr Galvanizer is that like exact effect, but for artifacts. And I was just kind of contemplating it. I was like, I think Myr Galvanizer actually combos with stuff I already have in my Osgir Myr deck. And like, sure enough, I already have the Staff of Domination in there, which combos fairly easily with Myr Galvanizer.
Ooh.
And then I realized that it combos even easier with Myr Welder. Like, you just have to have the Staff and, like, some other mana rock in your graveyard to combo with Myr Welder really easily and for, like, very little mana investment. So, if you are interested in combo and combo wins, I think Welder is really, really powerful. I think Galvanizer is similar in a way. You just have to like make a copy of Galvanizer, because Galvanizer for 1 mana and tap is untap all of your other Myr. So lots of Myr that tap for mana. So it's like, you have to have like a fair amount of like investment and board presence to make that combo work. But works pretty well, and I've certainly won a lot of games with the Myr Galvanizer combo. And I think that that really is how Myr are going to win most of the time. I have tried so hard to make like Myr go wide decks work, and apart from Incubator, the token generation is just like so slow that it's not usually super fun. Like short of having some loops with Battlesphere, that can work pretty well to get a really wide board. But apart from Battlesphere, there's like a couple cards that are like decent Myr token generation. So like Mirrodin Besieged, every time you cast an artifact spell, you can get a 1/1 Myr. That's for 3 mana, and I mean, you compare that to other effects like Young Pyromancer, which is just like a 2-drop that does that for elementals. It's a little slower. And then like something like Myr Turbine is one of my favorite cards, where it taps to create a 1/1 Myr. And you can tap 5 Myr and tap it to tutor for a Myr and put it into play, which is usually Battlesphere or a Galvanizer or a Welder if you're trying to combo. But that's a 5 mana card, and like 5 mana to create a 1/1 each turn is not a great rate. The second ability's pretty strong though. So the token generation is just, it's hard for Myr, and short of just like getting the Incubator out and getting like something to buff all your tokens or whatever, that can work. and that's always fun when it happens, but I find it's like fairly inconsistent, and can be like really reliant on doing stuff with your Battlesphere to create the tokens, stuff like that. Um, yeah, I guess another card that is really powerful with creating, or like really powerful with Incubator in particular, is like Reckless Fireweaver, which is
Ooh, yeah.
like whenever an artifact enters the battlefield, you just ping each opponent for one. So, in essence, if you crack your Incubator and get 40 Myr, and Reckless Fireweaver sees all of those Myr and deals 40 damage to each opponent, in essence, that's not really any different than an infinite combo, because it's a combo that's going to win you the game almost all the time. Um, so I don't know. I feel like I used to be a lot more adverse to infinite combos, but just for like feeling like I'm able to have a fair shot at winning the game, I've kind of like accepted that a little bit more about mirror decks that like having a couple mirror that combo pretty well is a great boon for the deck. Yeah. I guess another one just that bears mentioning is Myr Retriever, which is like this
Mm,
classic part of the Krark Clan Ironworks extremely convoluted combo.
yep.
um, I I think about that combo a lot in EDH. I think in EDH it's much hard to make the Krark Clan Ironworks combo work with Myr Retriever because it requires like it's like a 4 card combo, and in the decks I've had it in, those 4 combo pieces don't necessarily synergize a ton with like the other stuff that's going on in the deck. But I don't know. I think someday it would be really fun to try to build like a Myr like kind of mono black like aristocrats kind of thing, where like being able to return stuff, or rather being able to return artifacts from your graveyard to your hand is a more just kind of like generally good stuff effect, more useful. Um, but yeah, I think that's a fairly comprehensive look at which Myr cards are going to win you games, or which cards have synergies with Myr that are going to win you games. That makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I like it. Yeah, just the fact that there are this many options that you've talked about so far, out of only 38 creature
Yeah.
cards being Myr. Yeah, and that's not counting like Mirrodin Besiege and things that make Myr tokens and things like that. But
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, it's really cool though. And you kind of got into something a little bit about like creating a certain creature type based deck being difficult for when you have uh, creatures that don't necessarily work well with going wide, because that's
Yeah.
kind of the general thing. It's like, here's my rat deck that you win by having Marrownauer create 100 rat tokens, and then you go wide, or
Right. Right,
goblins
right,
could
right.
also go wide.
Yeah, or
So
even like elves.
elves,
Like
yeah,
yeah, so many of these creature types just really want to go wide, when you focus on them.
yeah,
That I think there's just kind of an assumption that whenever you build a deck that's focused on a creature type, you kind of want to do that.
right,
And I
yeah,
find that's just like kind of a struggle with Mir.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel the same way about a lot of creature type based decks that I've built in the past too. Is that if they don't want to go wide, then you can still create like a deck around them that
Mhm,
has a
mhm.
completely different strategy. So yeah, and
Right.
like
Yep.
using infinite combos it's really cool that you have the ability to do that with a lot of these mirror focused cards.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. It's fun.
Yeah, and I'll also add something you didn't mention or haven't mentioned yet, that there are 2 mirror creatures that have infect,
Yeah. Yeah.
Ichorclaw mirror and Plague mirror,
Mhm.
and both of those I play in my Subira infect deck, and they're both
Oh, heck yeah.
superstars in that deck. So good.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
I run those in a lot of I've kept those in a lot of Mir decks because just having like something with infect is often better than like, well, it's better than a majority of the Mir cards out there. So even if you don't have like a ton of synergy with it, like I mean you can throw Plague Mir pretty much anywhere because it's a mana
yeah,
dork,
yeah.
and just having the infect is like once in a blue moon, just relevant. And I think it's
Right,
actually
yeah.
really funny with Osgear because, like, Osgear has that ability to sacrifice artifacts, mainly to get them in your graveyard to copy them. But it does give a creature +2/+0 when you sacrifice an artifact. So there
Oh,
is there is that edge case like someday, you just have one of your little infect Myr out and you buff it a ton and kill someone. Kind of fun.
I love that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's good.
and just you reminded me there's like one other combo that with
Mm.
a really odd Myr that I just like absolutely adore that I've never made work, but I really love in essence. There's this strange little man named Myr Mineservant. This is like one of the more like meme cards out there. It's a 1 drop 1/1, and for 2 mana and like tapping it, you can shuffle your library, which is just like uh, such an odd effect.
Yeah.
But I was like, man, when could this ability possibly be useful? And I realized, with cards that are letting you play stuff from the top of your library, if you have like something going on with your Staff of Domination that gives you like infinite mana, well, I guess if you have infinite mana with Staff of Domination, you're usually just drawing your deck. But if you have infinite mana, infinite untap, which is like the most common line you have with Myr Galvanizer, you just have infinite mana, infinite untap. That means you have infinite activations of Myr Mineservant. So with something like, gosh, what's his name? The Melik, the Is It Paragon, that's letting you play instant sorceries off the top of your library. I thought that
Ah.
would be a really cute combo where it's like you can just basically stack your deck because you have infinite
You can
shuffle.
Yeah, you can shuffle
Yeah.
it until you have the card on top that you want. Oh,
Right,
that's
right, right,
funny.
right. Yeah, it is really dumb. And again, that's a card that's just like so useless outside of that like scenario.
Oh
But I thought
man.
that was really cute, and I would love to make it work someday.
Imagine if you weren't playing with like a chill play group and they were like, no, you have to shuffle it every time until you get through.
Yeah. That'd be rough.
Or like Magic the Gathering online or something. You
Oh my
just
gosh. Yeah. Don't try this combo at home,
yeah.
please.
I
Yeah.
love it.
Wow.
Cool. Yeah. So yeah, I think we've done a pretty good job of giving like an overview of the power of Myr so far.
Mhm.
So yeah, to go back a little bit, what is just your favorite Myr card art that you have seen?
Yeah, definitely Silver Mirror for me, and I like strongly attribute that to like I think I mentioned this in the Raf Capuchin episode that
Mm,
like coming hot off of seeing the Star Wars prequels and
yeah.
thinking that like all the droids and like particularly Jango Fett is just the coolest, and seeing Silver Mirror with this like aesthetic that is very similar to like Jango Fett on Camino. It's just the
Yep.
silver boy sitting in the rain. I was like, oh my gosh, it's Star Wars. I love it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that art by Walker on the original Silver Mirror is just like so fantastic. I think there's like a lot of mystery to it, and like even in the flavor text, I think it's something like something something the Vidalcan didn't know the or didn't understand the like intelligence behind their eyes. It's just like, wow, what's going on with these little guys? They're so interesting and kind of mysterious. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would say that's probably just like my favorite card in Magic, just in terms of like feeling it or like holding it and feeling good. It's like
I
pretty
love that.
boring mechanically, it's just a artifact mana dork that taps for a blue, but just makes me feel good whenever I play it, whenever I have it in hand. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we're here for, is to play cards that make us feel good. I don't know if it's my influence from you playing so many Myr, but I always consider playing one of the Manamere in literally any of my decks because they're really
Uh
good. They're just 1/1
yeah.
artifact creatures that tap for. There's one of each color, and then you already talked about Palladium Myr, which taps for 2 colorless, and then there's also Alloy Myr, which is taps for 1 of any color for 3 mana.
Mhm.
That's just good. It's solid.
Yeah, yeah. I think that whenever you're talking about mana dorks, there's always the conversation of like, well, after a board wipe, you're going to be in kind of rough shape. But I think that the for that reason, the mana mirror are very cheap. They're like
Yeah.
each like a quarter or less to buy, and I think that there's actually kind of a hidden strength to cards like that. They're not the like strictly the best version of a card. So like imagine your opponent plays a Silver Mirror versus they drop an Arcane Signet. Like if they drop a silver mirror, at least in my mind, it's like, oh, maybe this is not like a super tuned deck, or maybe maybe it's a
Mm,
budget deck. And already I'm like, maybe I don't have to be as worried about them.
yeah.
Versus they're playing Arcane Signet after they drop their Soul Ring or whatever. I'm like, oh man, this is a scary deck.
Right.
So, I don't know. I almost always run the Manamere and just like across the board in my decks because they make me feel good when I play them. And I
Yeah.
would say that a majority of the time they are like almost as good as your 2-drop mana rocks. So it is definitely a fair payoff in my books. And sometimes they help you block your opponent's Voltron killer,
Right. Yeah.
which is nice.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say. Is there's a lot of arguments to be made, like Arcane Signet versus a Silver Mirror, like whether or
Mhm.
not you want it to be a creature. But I
Yeah,
found a lot of games, if you are the one person that doesn't have a creature down in the early turns, that everyone just
yeah,
attacks you with their little creatures that they got down in the early turns.
yeah.
And
That's a good
then
point.
yeah, and then by the time you play your commander, you're like 10 less life than everyone else, and it's kind of
Right, right.
yeah, it's kind of hard. Just because, yeah, you can just play a Silver Mirror and then people don't attack you because you have a creature. Happens all the time.
Yeah, Arcane Signet looks a lot less strong when there's the hidden text like pay 10 life to play this card.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's funny.
I was also reading some of the Manamere flavor text, and
Oh yeah.
they're pretty interesting. All of them kind of allude to them having more intelligence than people think. Like the white one, Goldmere, it says the Leonin thought of the mirror as omens, never imagining the sinister fate they foretold.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Honestly, the original like story for the original Mirror didn't block, I think, and for the return, I even though I hate to see my precious babies, hurt by the Phyrexians, I think both stories for the original Mirror didn't block and the return block were really solid. And I guess in the original block, Memnarch was kind of like the Mirror's controller or master or whatever,
Oh yeah.
and Memnarch was kind of the big bad. But then when you get Memnarch out of the picture, some like really interesting things start to happen with like the Myr and their lore. Like I think the Myr kind of like mythos was really interesting. It was like these two Myr are programmed to do the exact same thing, and they cross paths, and like each time they try to get out of the way of the other one, they like get back in the way of the other one. Like we've all been there at the grocery store, right?
Mm.
That's pretty awkward.
Yeah.
But like they literally are just like stuck in this loop until they end up like destroying each other because they were like taking the same actions every time. And then some little like other Myr comes along and like repairs these Myr, and these Myr that have been repaired now have this new knowledge that's like, oh, this action caused me to die. I need to do a different action so I don't die. Or it might have only repaired one of the Myr. I can't remember exactly. So then all of a sudden, like the Myr have this like sentience begin to
Ooh.
yeah, come to life in their species, where they can have differing ideologies and like are learning different things. So I thought that was like a really cool kind of like mythos for these cute little guys. And I am like halfway through one of the original Mirrodin books and
Oh,
just
cool.
desperately want to learn everything I can about the Myr because I love them so much. But I really like that. Just like that background for the creature type in particular. It's very neat. And
Yeah.
I hope that they're not like completed forever. I hope we see
Mm.
some healthy Myr again in the future.
Totally. Yeah, same here. It's really interesting. I didn't know anything about the lore behind them really, besides kind of like the world building that you see in the cards.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, and that's giving me some real like iRobot vibes there.
Yeah, 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 for sure, for sure. I just love like AI as a theme in like
Yeah,
all of media, and yeah, so that just makes perfect sense to me why I just cannot leave the Myr alone.
I
I
love
love
it.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will Smith is like, can you get out of the way of someone at the grocery store without bumping into them? And the mirror is like, can
Can you?
you?
Oh, that's perfect. Oh gosh.
Oh man. Okay, so yeah, that's awesome. I love it. Okay, yeah, and then so we were talking about card art. What about tokens? Is there a specific artist and Myr token that you have a favorite of?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a little bummed that like the kind of default Myr token that we see like reprinted over and over is this one where they're like really fleshy. It's like
Yeah.
the Myr Propagator Myr token. And like Myr Propagator is like I appreciate the art because it's like fairly different, but yeah, it's really fleshy and kind of weirds me out.
Yeah.
So not a huge fan of that token, which is like the most common one, but I really like the 2/1 mirror tokens that Brutaclad makes. I think those are really cool and they're a little different looking. I love the original one that's like totally different style and super spiky, the one that you so kindly gifted me, Lick.
Yes.
Yeah, those are neat. And then I really like the Phyrexian mirror tokens actually. I think those are really cool designs. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just looking at all the tokens together, and it's kind of cool. The original like Phyrexianized token has a lot of
Mhm.
similarities to the Brutaclad tokens, which is a really cool like
Yeah,
thematic element.
absolutely. Yeah. Oh, and like the xenomorph from the Alien movies.
Yes.
I feel like they like when they return to Mirrodin, they're like, so if we corrupt these mirror, what's kind of a cool thing we can do with them? And somebody was like xenomorph, and they're
Yeah.
like, give that person a raise. So like
Yes.
there's actually a card called Xenograft, which is a really neat card. It's just like enters the battlefield and you choose a creature type, and it makes all your creatures that creature type. And it depicts like these mirror heads that are kind of elongated and have these like really spiky spines attached to them. And they're like all
Mm,
hanging on a rack, and they look exactly like the xenomorph. And I think it is not not a
yeah.
coincidence that the card is named Xenograph. So I think that was a really intentional thing, and I absolutely love the xenomorphs design from the Alien
Yeah.
flicks.
Yeah.
So I was just pleased as punch that as they corrupted the mirror, they kind of leaned into that inspiration. I thought that
So
was really
cool.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I hope we see more. Yeah, more story happening with the mirror later this year. Oh, I'm so excited.
Please, please. It's been a drought these last 10 years.
It's
Uh,
true. It's
yeah.
true. Well, so the next question I was going to ask you is what deck strategies work well with Mir? I know we've already talked about that quite a bit, but is there anything else that you
Yeah,
have in mind when it comes to that?
absolutely. Yeah. So I have a ton of thoughts about this because I have brewed, I don't know, I've brewed something like 10 mirror decks with like different commanders over the
Mm.
years. And at one point I had four mirror decks in my collections at once, or in my collection at once, and now I'm down to just two in my collection. One that's like as like tuned really well, and one that's like less tuned that I can play at lower power tables and feel good about. But yeah, so we talked about how I think Mir is kind of tough to do like the kind of traditional go wide strategy. Um, and a lot of the Mir cards don't do a whole lot. So I find that when you have these low cost Mir, so I'm thinking like Perilous Mir and Mir Sire and like Mir Scrappling, all these little guys that like don't necessarily help you a ton, but they're Mir bodies, so you kind of want them for your Mir deck. They don't necessarily feel great to draw because it's like, oh man, this really doesn't help me that much here. It might help me down the line if I'm trying to have a bunch of Mir bodies on board for a big payoff, like Sharon Animosity or Coat of Arms. But because of that reason, it's like I want to include as many like mere creatures as I can without it like completely trashing the deck's game plan because it's so slow. I found a good way to get around that is to build decks with really high velocity. So velocity meaning you just like see a lot of cards. So drawing a ton is one way to achieve that. But I find a really efficient way to see a lot of cards is self mill because there's a lot of cards that are going to self mill you for like a huge number of cards at once. And if you have a way of interacting with those cards in your graveyard, that can really help you kind of cherry pick the best mirror. And when you have the time to use like the less strong mirror, you still have them accessible, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I found that Osgear right now for me is the best feeling mirror commander for that very reason. Like I'm really milling myself, and instead of getting like one perilous mirror for 2 mana that shocks things when it dies, I actually get two perilous mirror for 2 mana, and I can shock something twice when they both die. And Osgear is also a sack outlet, so all of a sudden perilous mirror looks a lot more playable. which is nice because I love that card's art. I love the flavor of it and everything, and I think it's one of the like more playable Myr. Um, yeah, so I found that to be best, but I've experimented with like the go wide strategies with like Jor Kadeen and Corona False God, just trying to build up a ton of Myr and buff them. And then I also tried out like Brutaclad, which is like the most popular Myr tribal commander.
Yep.
But I find that like usually Brutaclad is making the Myr, and like the actual powerful effect that you want from Brutaclad is transforming the Myr into something different. So that just feels kind of weird. I don't know.
Yeah, that won't do.
Yeah, it just never felt like a great Myr deck. Yeah, it didn't feel like Brutaclad was really I don't know, advancing my game plan in a way that I wanted with a Myr deck.
Yeah,
So
makes
scrap
sense.
that. Yeah, Raf Capuchin was a lot of fun, and can go back and listen to that episode on this podcast. I think that was a cool deck. But yeah, Osgir, and I actually also have a Pramicon deck right now, this Jeskai Myr, that is all about a really dumb pun, which is Myr on the wall, because Pramicon is a wall. And that's lower power, but like it's fun and silly, and I enjoy playing it. But yeah, Osgir really does it for me. Osgir is like an unbelievably strong commander
Mm,
with just a drawback of like summoning sickness, which is like a pretty big drawback. But if you're protecting Osgir, giving Osgir haste, kind of unbelievably good at ramping you and unbelievably good at getting you card advantage. So in Boros colors, nonetheless.
yeah, right.
So yeah, I am loving Osgir Mir. Yeah, and then just to I don't know, do a little bit of a deep dive into like the EDH rec page for Mir Tribal. Like scrolling through this, I have played with almost every single one of these cards and have found like a lot of them to not work as well as you would expect in practice. So just kind of like running through that, like the very top cards you're looking at are like Mirrodin Besieged and Myrsmith. That's fine. They're both like giving you a little bit of Myr token generation. That's fine. I usually run those because they're like the best versions of that effect usually. Then when you get to like Tempered Steel, giving all your artifact creatures +2/+2, I've run that in a lot of decks, but I find it's just like it's my Myr board state is never fast enough to really like make me feel good about having that card in hand. I don't know,
Gotcha.
maybe it is cheaper than Coat of Arms, so maybe that as a win con could work. But I find that Coat like there's no guessing. Like after I have my Myr Incubator board state and I throw down Coat of Arms, there's almost no need to do math usually because it's like they're
Yeah,
so big. They each are
yeah,
getting like +40/+40, which is I think worth the 2 extra mana as opposed to +2/+2.
yeah. It's
um,
interesting. I think you could kind of get into some kind of statistics with cards like Tempered Steel, where
right. Hmm.
if most often you'll probably have 10 or less Myr creatures, artifact creatures, and then that adds another 20 power to the board, which isn't nothing, but it's not going to be enough to win you the game.
Right.
Whereas if you already have like 40 or 50 artifact creatures on the board, then it's going to do a ton more, but you might already have been able to win the game without it. So
Right.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
interesting how like it looks like it would be really good, but then in reality it might not. It'll either be useless or be maybe okay.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I don't know. I think that there's maybe a way to make the go wide Myr strategy work pretty well. But I don't know. I've just found what I've gravitated towards to be more fun to play, and it just works more consistently. That kind of stuff. Another card that is very similar in that way, I think, is Reflections of Litjarrah, which is another top five
Mm.
like most used card in Myr decks. Where whenever you cast a spell of the chosen creature type, you copy that spell. Really cool effect. 5 mana is a lot, and a majority of the time it's
Yeah.
going to be copying like 1, 2, 3 drops. So I just found that to be kind of slow. It's really nice when you copy a Myr Battlesphere or a Myr Galvanizer, but I find there's just like better ways to do that usually that are a little more efficient, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Um,
That's and sorry to just I'll also add on to all of these, but
no, please, yeah,
that card is one I've tested in my Merfolk deck and also in my Ooze deck
yeah, hmm,
iterations, and it's kind of interesting because it on its face it seems like oh, all my ooze cards are going to be doubled, that's the best. But then in reality, and it's similar for Myr, you only really have like maybe 12 to 15 creatures of that type.
Yeah.
So yeah, the chances of actually getting more than like one copy, more than one copy off of this are pretty low. As opposed to Merfolk, where my Merfolk deck runs literally 36 Merfolk creatures, so almost every turn you'll be able to copy something. Much different cases there. And yeah, there are a bunch of spells that are like 3 mana that copy a creature you control, which I could see in a Myr deck being more useful if that's what you're trying to do.
For sure, for sure. So like in my Myr decks I've built that have blue in them, that's usually a really common effect. Like there's the one Zendikar guy that's like a land on one side and a clone on the other side for 3 mana. I can't remember his name right now.
Oh, yeah.
Shape yeah, I can't remember, but
Yep.
that's a great include because it's really versatile. Like when I don't need the clone effect, I can play it as a land, but great with Myr Galvanizer to get the Galvanizer combo going. But again, like with Osgir, you have that in the command zone that is also just interacting with all of your other artifacts in your deck. So like I also built a Marit of the Frost deck because I was like, oh, that's so good. It's a second Myr Galvanizer in the command zone, so you can get that combo off really easily. But I just found there weren't that many other things I was wanting to copy with Marit.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I don't know. I just really love Osgir. He's really great for the deck. But yeah, and then I guess just a couple other cards I wanted to acknowledge that I see played a lot in Myr decks. So like you look at Myr Reservoir, and Myr Reservoir seems really awesome because it's a 3-drop that will it's a 3-drop mana rock that will ramp you for 2 colorless mana when you tap it, but you can only spend that mana on Myr spells or Myr abilities. And the other thing is pay 3, tap it, return a Myr from your graveyard to your hand. And like seriously, on paper this card looks great for a Myr deck, but at least the way that I'm building Myr decks, I just find that card is like dead way too often.
Yeah.
Like I use it to play like the 1 Myr in my hand or like the 2 Myr in my hand. But you know, almost all the time I think a Worn Power Stone is going to be better. That just gives you that 2 mana for no stipulation.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I see it's in 90% of the Myr creature type decks on EDH.
Right. Yeah.
And I can totally see why, but it'll be interesting because this is a card that, you know, later this year, if there are 2 sets that are packed with Myr creatures and we get 30 more Myr creatures, this could be a really good card.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But
and I mean, you keep scrolling on EDH Rec and you start to see a lot of people are playing with a lot of really bad Myr. And you know, no shame. Like if you want to be building kind of a janky low power deck with this tribe, like all the more power to you. But like at the same time, you don't have to build a Myr deck that way. I think that you can build a Myr deck that can function really well and just like, you know, not be playing Alpha Myr and Omega Myr that are like a 2/1 and a 1/2 vanilla creatures.
Gotcha.
Or like you scroll down a way and you see like Myr Servitor being played in 20% of decks, which is a 1/1 for 1 and is only caring about non-singleton formats for its ability. So it's basically another vanilla Myr. So I don't know. And I've played with all these cards and they just are not fun to draw. You know, it's just like, man, this card really, like, I love Myr, but this is not going to help me like participate in this game. So, you know, swapping those cards out even for like clone effects so that you're doubling up on the Myr that you actually want to see, something like that is, I think, in my book, preferable. Yeah, and then again, I mentioned this in the Raf Capuchin episode, but Myr Superion is a 2-drop 5/6, but can only be casted with mana from Mana Dorks. And that sounds cool because there's a lot of Myr Mana Dorks, but unless you've really built your deck around this card, it's just going to be dead in hand most of the time. The exception for me is in my Osgir deck, it's actually going to be in my graveyard most of the time. In which case, getting 2 5/6s for 2 mana actually feels really good. Yeah. So that's one of my I don't know, favorite cards in Osgir. That's a Myr creature. I also have the sweet like Judge promo art, which is one of my favorite arts in Magic on there. It's just absolutely gorgeous. But I
think that might be one of my favorite cards when it comes to Myr, because I am all about getting just big, chunky creatures for
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
really cheap cost. That's why I love demons so much. They often have some kind
Oh
of
yeah.
alternate casting cost where you like jump through some hoops and you get this big creature at the end. And yeah, I think two mana for a 5/6 from mana from creatures is just it's cool. It's just cool.
It is cool. It is really cool. And I think that like, you put that in an elf deck or whatever, and it's like elves can be doing things that are a lot stronger. But you're
Right,
going to be able
yeah.
to play that a lot more often. And that's kind of fun. It's just a fun card that way. But
Yeah.
I think with Osgear it's actually kind of a bop. I think it actually is pretty good.
Yeah, yeah, that has been my favorite Myr deck that I've seen just kind of pop off so consistently.
Oh, I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy to hear that. I'm excited to play the newest iteration against you because I think it is
Ooh,
like
yes.
actually I think it's actually one of my strongest decks now, which is like kind of silly.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Osgir just in general is such a cool commander. Yeah.
Yeah.
Boros has just never had a commander as sweet as Osgir and does so much stuff. And I love that it also is a great commander for Myr. It's, yeah,
Yeah.
all around
Yeah.
beautiful.
I am almost certain that it's the most popular Boros commander at this point, but let me
It's
just
gotta be,
check.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like number 23 most popular commanders overall. So, oh, I guess okay, yeah. So Arden and Rograk partner pairings are
Okay.
slightly more popular, just barely, and I can see that. That's cool too. But Osgear is just so much fun.
Yeah.
It's such a cool card.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We love Strixhaven for mixing things up for the color
What a
plays.
yeah, what a great set.
Okay, so looking to the future, we've talked about it a lot. There are two sets coming out later this year that, well, I guess three actually, if you kind of count Commander Legends. Although maybe not though, because
Ooh,
it's
yeah.
D&D
Baldur's
based.
Gate. Yeah.
Yeah, never mind. So two sets. We've got the Brothers War and what is it?
Dominaria United.
Dominaria
Yep,
United. Perfect. Yeah, so two
absolutely.
sets that could definitely include some more Myr cards. So my question for you is, if new Myr cards get released, what would you like to see them do?
That's a really great question. So we've had the battle sphere, and we've basically had a battle cube in Myr Incubator. So I would love to
Mm.
see like a battle pyramid. But like for real though, I think that Myr are really all over the place with their synergies and like what they do. I think they've mostly been kind of filler cards in the sets that they've been in.
Right.
So I mean, like something a card we haven't mentioned yet is like Brass Squire. But Brass Squire is a Myr that taps to let you attach an equipment for free. Great card. I love that card. It has almost nothing to do with any other Myr card ever made. There's like one
Yep.
other Myr card that cares about having equipment on it, and it's at a very like slow rate. It's not a great card. Yeah, and then you have like Myr Scrappling that cares about like 1/1 counters, and then there's the new Parcel Myr, which is the
Mm.
clue. And then like you look at Myr Battlesphere. Myr Battlesphere cares about you tapping Myr. Myr Galvanizer lets you untap Myr. There's a little bit of a synergy there, but like because of the timing of Battlesphere that only activates on attack trigger, that makes it kind of awkward. Like you can untap your Myr so that they like are available as blockers, I guess. But that's much less exciting than being able to like tap your Myr twice to Myr Battlesphere's ability,
Yeah.
which is like a synergy that I just so wish was there, but just isn't. So I think that is the most consistent synergy across Myr though, just because there's so many Manamere, and Galvanizer is just such a great card. Welder also taps as an ability, so like just having more things that interact with Myr tapping and untapping Myr, I think could be really cool. And honestly, like I don't really want a ton of Myr cards that are just like absurdly broken.
Mm.
I would love some more Myr that are just like I know I would love some better like Myr token generation because it would be nice to have like pretty functional Myr decks that don't rely on like going infinite quite as much because I know that's not everybody's favorite thing. And that's kind of what my Pramicon deck is. It's just relying more on like going wide with Myr, and it like kind of suffers for that a little bit. So that'd be cool to just see more token generation with Myr and being able to do kind of fun combat centric things with tapping and untapping that isn't necessarily like super broken.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would love to just see some more kind of synergies in that line. It would be kind of interesting to see like some sort of effect that gives Myr vigilance for like tapping for triggered abilities or something. Like the
Ooh.
first time they would be tapped. That sounds like completely broken immediately. But like, if you could just tap Myr twice for Battlesphere, I think that would be kind of rad. Um, the thing I really don't want to see is like a really definitive Myr commander. It would be cool to have a commander
Gotcha.
that cares about Myr as like a creature type, I think. But I am definitely not wanting the like what we had for werewolves.
I
What
was
was his
just about
name?
to say, yeah,
Yeah,
if they made a Tovalar, but it was for Mir.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, not super interested in that. I would build it. I would for sure build it, but a lot of other people would as well. And I think it
Yeah.
would, I'm not really interested in kind of low variance decks or like just in terms of like low variance deck building even. It's not even about how it plays out for me. It's just like I want to feel like I'm able to be really creative in the deck brewing process.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah.
And that's the cool thing about Mir is that they all do so many diverse things that yeah, building upon that and like expanding that makes a lot more sense than oof, yeah, getting a commander that's just like, well, you wanted to attack with these things, right? So now when you attack, you
Yeah,
get all
yeah.
these things. Yeah.
Yeah. Every time you cast a mirror, you draw a card and gain a mana of any color now.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. And definitely don't need to get into the Tovalar argument right now, but yeah, I just think it's more fun when you are kind of cobbling together this synergy that like does pay off. There are a lot of really cool payoffs here.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, I would also love to see more commanders and just maybe more artifact creatures for the Myr that can add to that arsenal of synergy. Okay, so my next question for you is, and we've talked about a bunch of these already, so we can get into it a little more. What is your favorite card that isn't a Myr itself but works really well with them?
Yeah, so there's all the artifacts that reference Myr in their text box, like they create Myr or like pay off for having Myr,
Yeah.
and I basically consider those Myr cards because they're
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like vital to the tribe working. I will say like my favorite card in Magic is actually like mechanically is Myr Weave, which is a 4-drop instant that just turns all creatures on the battlefield into target non-legendary creature. That's like hilarious with Myr Galvanizer. It's not like really great with any other Myr, maybe like Perilous Myr, so that when they all like in response to a board wipe, it's like you
Ooh.
just deal 2 damage to for each thing of yours that dies. That's really fun. I just love that card. But like things kind of like it. So like Mystic Reflection, I actually think is a really sweet Myr card.
Ooh, yeah.
Like you activate Mystic Reflection in response to Myr Galvanizer ETB, and
Ooh.
all of a sudden you just get like 5 Myr Galvanizers and 20 Myr tokens.
Yeah, that's
That's
fun.
Yeah, it's really fun. I love Mystic Reflection. It's another one of my favorite cards. Yeah, and then I guess oh yeah, there's a new card I'm really excited about for Myr, which is Mech Titan Core from Kamigawa.
Ooh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, which is just turn 4 of your little Myr into like this big 10/10. I love that. So I bought like 5 copies of that, and I'm just gonna throw it in all of my artifact decks.
Love it.
Really fun card.
Yeah, that is the Exodia of Myr, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. Okay, yeah, and so I think we went through the legendary creatures that you've tested for this, yeah, for playing Myr. So yeah, do you have anything else you want to say about as far as like legends go? I know we've been focusing on Commander quite a bit. Legends that work best with Myr.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think Jor Kadeen is a cool card because it gives all of your artifacts like +3/+0, and so like I've experimented with that as a finisher, and that can be really cool. I also used to have an Alabu Myr deck,
Ooh,
and I think
yeah.
Alabu is actually crazy strong. Alabu is a really good card. The only thing with Alabu is that you're constantly removing your opponent's creatures, which
Yeah.
can get kind of annoying. And I
Yeah.
for that reason I find Alabu draws a lot of hate. And like without Alabu giving you some card advantage with like a huge amount of scry, that deck can suffer just from like the Alabu being such a high priority target. But I love
Gotcha.
it. I love it as a card in the 99. Uh, Feels a little less oppressive, and I usually get a lot of value out of it before it dies, like usually within the turn cycle. So
Makes sense. Cool.
yeah.
Yeah, I can second that. I think if Alibu did something slightly different besides being a repeatable removal thing, it would be a lot more fun to play against.
Yeah,
As is,
I
it's a
kind of
tough.
wish
Yeah.
I kind of wish it just targeted players with the pinging ability. That would
Yeah.
still be really strong. Yeah, and I think just kind of more fun. Like maybe make
Yeah.
it a little better, like a little cheaper. Like if it's a 3 drop or something that can only target players. I think that is still a really cool card. That's like
Yeah.
a little less just like removal all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those instances in Commander where you have this repeatable removal, so even if there's nothing like super threatening, you're still going to use it, so it kind of ends
Right.
up
Yeah.
in,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, like me getting all of my, I don't know, just my little creatures that I kind of need to build up getting removed just
Yeah.
because
Your mana
what
dorks.
else? Yeah, I'm like, ugh, why?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
All right, so we've come to closing in on the end of the episode, and so this is probably the most important question I have for you, and that is, how can we all out there, everyone listening, how can we all appreciate the Myr a little bit more?
Ooh, I think Battlesphere is has been kind of like power crept out of seeing as much play lately. But Battlesphere has so much synergy in like so many different decks that I think it's cool to just think about when you can throw that in. And in my experience, everyone enjoys seeing a Battlesphere get thrown around.
Yep.
Like it can deal a ton of damage each turn. Like I was amazed. I have this Satoru big artifacts deck, and when I threw down a Battlesphere on turn 4, like it just dealt so much damage so fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I think that Battlesphere can just go in a lot of decks for fun. It's a great card. And then like I think Myr Incubator is a really solid win con that could see more play in artifact decks. And the fact that it is kind of high risk, high reward, I think is a really fun thing in Commander. Um, you know, Providing your opponents opportunity to interact with your win con is a really great way to create stories. And
Yeah.
if you kind of do that by design, I think that can help you not feel as bad about your win con being interacted with. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, I wanted this opportunity to be there, that there could be this kind of huge moment where it's like it all goes up in flames. That's really
Ooh,
fun too.
so good.
Yeah.
And I'll second the Satoru players taking a look at Battlesphere, because it was me who was getting hit with, I think it was 18 damage in one attack just from the Battlesphere in the Myr on
Yes.
turn 4. So
Yeah. 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 It's ridiculous. It's
Yeah.
funny. I think we were playing a game and you were like, okay, I have a phone call in 30 minutes. And I was like,
Yep.
okay, I accept this challenge. And so I killed you in like 15 with your Battlesphere.
I was like, well, yeah, you did it. That's wow.
Yeah. Good memory. Good memory.
So good. All right, Livy, I've got one final question for you, and that is, if some Myr got together and they were in charge of planning a party, what kind of party would it be?
I think definitely like an EDM dance party.
Yes.
That they're just like that none of the Myr can ever leave. They're just always perpetually dancing. Whenever like whenever somebody is trying to like leave, there's always like 5 other Myr trying to leave. And so they can't. The punchline is like out the door. But I would still go to that party and have a great time.
Oh yeah, same here. I love it. Oh man. Well, thank you so much, Livy, for joining me and letting me ask you questions about Myr. And
Yeah. Oh my gosh. As you can tell, I can talk about Myr forever. I'm pretty sure we just gave you your like new longest episode.
yeah,
But
it's pretty close.
truly, yeah, truly, I love Myr as a creature type. I love playing with them. I love their strategies. It is just such a blast, and I would highly recommend y'all just try it out. Try building a Myr deck. It's so much fun.
Yeah, and really fun to play against. I have loved playing against all of your Myr decks over the years.
That makes me happy
And
to hear.
yeah, definitely. And it's so fun to play games with new people or like get introduced to new people. And every game you're like, okay, Soul Ring, Silvermere, let's go. And people are like, this person over here plays a lot of Myr cards. Like, what's going on here? Like, nobody ever expects it. It's really fun.
Yeah, yep. And I have to say, I've actually never played against another Myr deck. So, our dear listeners, if you have a Myr deck that you love, like please just like reach out to me, and I would love to play a spell table against you and talk Myr because I need it.
Yeah. I'm super into that. Yeah. Well, yeah. Thank you so much for joining us again. And I think I totally forgot to mention earlier in the episode, but Livi, you have your own podcast as well. It's called Lost with Fblthp, which there will be links to it in the episode description below. But definitely go check out Livi's podcast.
Yeah, yay, thank you. It was very much inspired by this podcast, just because I had so much fun coming on over the years, and I just needed some place to talk about Magic more. So
yes, same. Yeah,
thank you so much.
Of course, yeah, that's what I'm here for too. So happy to be a part of it. Yeah. So, Livi, do you have anything else you want to shout out or talk about before we wrap the episode up?
Ooh, I mean, I guess just Myr are the best creature type, and yeah, you should throw them in every deck you can. I think that a Myr is always cuter than a Fellwar Stone. A Myr is always cuter than a Soul Ring. So what could you possibly be missing out on?
Yeah, 100% agree with that. I love it. So hopefully we can see more of those out there in the wild. Yeah, and then as far as doing appreciation episodes about creature types in Commander and in Magic in general, if anyone out there has, some kind of a creature you feel is underrepresented that you'd like to come talk to me about, let me know. Reach out to the Faerie Conclave on Discord, Instagram, or Twitter. We're also on YouTube now. So, Livi, this episode is going to be released on YouTube.
Ooh. Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah, it's super exciting. Just reach out, let me know, and we can make something happen. Yeah, and besides that, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and welcome to the Faerie Conclave, and we will catch you all next time. Thank you.